You know what amazes me? How we have an elite fighter in the prime of his career who has a spectacular resume, has what I think is the greatest 3-fight win streak in the history of the sport, and there is still many people out there that want to continue to discredit what Ilia Topuria has accomplished. The Ilia Topuria disrespect has gone way too far. It's gone way too far, man. So we're going to talk about it in this video because recently, Shara Bullet had some things to say about Ilia Topuria, right? This was posted by Red Corner MMA. So we're going to talk about what Shara had to say, my response, and then we're going to take a look at Ilia Topuria's resume, and we're going to talk about those 3 wins against Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and Charles Oliveira, because there are still so many fans out there that are so delusional in how Ilia Topuria won those fights. And they're so delusional in their assessment of those guys that have fought Ilia Topuria. It's amazing how when Ilia fights somebody, all of a sudden they're old and washed, but yet those same guys are beating everybody else in the division. They still look dang good, but they're washed and old and slow, and there's always some sort of excuse every time Ilia Topuria wins. So we're going to talk about it all. So really this is, what Shara had to say, but it's kind of bigger than that. There are so many people out there that agree with Shara, and they have the same kind of take here, right? Topuria got to the belt fighting questionable opponents. Shara Bullet calls Ilia Topuria an overrated fighter and questions his path to the title. And you know what I find so interesting about this is how Shara is the one saying this, when literally Shara is one of the most overrated fighters in the UFC. Brother, his grappling is 0. They literally throw Shara in there with guys that have no grappling and are just going to stand there and strike with him because he can't grapple. Right? And nobody really says much about it because we're like, it's fun. Shara's a good striker. But for him to come out here and criticize somebody and what they've done, kind of rich coming from Shara Magomedov, man. I like Shara, but it doesn't make any sense coming from him. But at the end of the day, here's what he has to say. He's a good fighter on his own, but if you look at how he got to the belt, there were 4 or 5 fights against questionable opponents. And when he fought really serious fighters, they were already worn out. Charles Oliveira was worn out. I think Max Holloway was a tough opponent, but he's not the same as before. He's taken a lot of damage in his career and kind of slowed down. Alexander Volkanovski was also not at the same level he used to be. Well, I think that Michael Venom Page is not the same fighter he once was, and he still whooped Shara Magomedov. So, listen, man, people that want to consistently rip on Ilia Topuria and what he's accomplished, I don't get it. The constant discrediting is just beyond me. And obviously this is his opinion, but I don't understand this whatsoever, man, because the Ilia Topuria disrespect is just ridiculous. Volk just whooped Diego's ass for 50 minutes. Max starched Gaethje at UFC 300 and then schooled Dustin Poirier. Charles just destroyed Mateusz Gamrot. These guys are still at the top of the food chain. Ilia is just that good, accept it. That's the reality. That is absolutely the reality. Like the delusion that people have when it comes to Ilia, and it's like people just go to great lengths to just discredit what he has done. And honestly, I feel like no matter what Ilia does in the sport, there's always going to be people out there that are just going to continue to discredit his resume and make excuses every time the dude wins. And I don't understand it. And when people criticize his resume, this dude is not only 9-0 in the UFC, 17-0 overall, undefeated, 17 wins by knockout, 8 by submission, and 2 by decision. He is a complete fighter. He is an elite fighter. He says he's the new era of fighter, the next generation of mixed martial arts. Backs it up. One of the most exciting fighters in the sport, man. Like, I just don't understand this. When you talk about his resume, beat Yusuf Zalal, how well that win has aged. And I understand this was Yusuf, right? He was in the UFC. Then he, had to come back to the UFC later and he fixed some things. But that is a great win. That is a great win. And he put it on Yusuf Zalal in that fight. Out-grappled him. And look how good Zalal is. Mr. Speedy Gonzalez, a guy that's probably going to fight for the featherweight title at some point. Starched Damon Jackson in the first round. Beat up Ryan Hall, and I get it, Ryan Hall's one-dimensional, but Bryce Mitchell's a good win. Bryce Mitchell's a solid grappler, good jiu-jitsu, right? And he was on a roll in this weight class, right? Until he ran into Ilia Topuria. Topuria beat him up on the feet, boxing him up, took him down and submitted him. Right, and then goes out there and puts on an absolute masterclass against Josh Emmett for 5 rounds and destroys him. Dominates him. It was a boxing masterclass for MMA. And then he gets a title shot, right? And given the fact that Volk had basically kind of cleared out the division, the next clear guy was Ilia. Putting on impressive performances, finishing people, going out there and doing what he did to Josh Emmett. People are like, well, he didn't finish Josh Emmett. Dude, he beat the brakes off of Josh Emmett. And Josh Emmett's a rather durable guy, especially if you're just going to stand there and strike with him. I mean, Ilia Topuria put on a boxing masterclass in that fight. Go back and watch that fight, man. And then he goes out there and starches Alexander Volkanovski, starches Max Holloway, and then starches Charles Oliveira. And oh, by the way, remember that narrative like, Ilia's running. He's running to 155, dog. He's scared of the 45ers on the rise. He was supposed to fight Movsar Evloev. If you go back and check on Tapology, he was supposed to fight Movsar, and Movsar withdrew. So the fight didn't end up happening, but they were supposed to fight. And you think that Ilia Topuria was so terrified of the featherweight division that he moved up to possibly fight Islam Makhachev and all of these dangerous dudes in the lightweight division? These guys at the top of the lightweight division are far more dangerous than what they are at the featherweight division. They just are. They just are, man. Like, so when people want to pick apart this guy's resume, I don't understand it whatsoever. Bryce Mitchell's a good win. At the time, at least. Josh Emmett, that was a good win back in 2023. Josh Emmett, big power, man. Big power. And to go out there and not take him down, go toe-to-toe with him, and just dot him up like, come on, man. And that Yusuf Zalal win has aged incredibly well. Out-grappled him, and I believe he took that fight on short notice. Was battling through adversity, got real tired in the fight. So I don't understand this whatsoever, and there's people out there that love to hype up Bryce Mitchell and how good of a grappler he is. And to be fair, Bryce Mitchell did take him down and have a few moments, but then to beat him up on the feet and submit him, I mean, Bryce Mitchell was on a roll, man. He was on an absolute roll. So I don't get it whatsoever. And then, he ran the lightweight to me. He didn't run from anybody, dog. At featherweight, give me a break, dog. All right, and the Volkanovski win. We talk about the Volk win. People are unbelievably delusional about this. It was a lucky punch. It was Ilia playing roulette, just spamming out right hands, man. Just, hoping and throwing, praying and firing. There was no art or technique or strategy behind what Ilia did against Volkanovski, right? This was a technical masterclass and strategic breakdown that Ilia displayed against Alexander Volkanovski. That's the reality. And I understand that, Volkanovski, he fought a few months before. He, took the fight on short notice against Islam, which that was a massive mistake. And I hated that the UFC wasted that rematch on short notice like that. And it was very impressive by Islam to go out there, set him up, and land the high kick. That was beautiful. But then the comeback to his weight class, where he's been unstoppable basically at 145 pounds, and Ilia Topuria goes out there. Volkanovski looked great in the first round. Sticking and moving, popping the jab, throwing out the kicks, utilizing his footwork. But it was a matter of time, man. And people were out here, man, Volkanovski will win 9 out of 10 times against Ilia. No. More like Ilia would win 10 out of 10 times against Volkanovski. Ilia Topuria is the kryptonite to Volkanovski at featherweight. Absolutely. Just like I think Islam, when he was at 55, would be a kryptonite for Volkanovski in that weight class. It's a stylistic thing. And the fact that Islam, who I think is the greatest fighter of all time, and then I think Ilia is right up there as one of the greatest fighters of all time, as is Volk. But it's the fact that as good as Volkanovski is, and as smooth and technical as he is, Ilia Topuria has the X factor of he's got the power. And he has elite boxing. Right? Volkanovski's not going to be able to out-grapple him. Ilia's got a good ground game. So what did Ilia do? He was very patient, had that boxer-type approach, got the jab going, was building his reads, and started to attack the lead leg of Volkanovski, making him a stationary target to where he could cut off the cage, back him up against the fence, trap him, and let his combinations go and floor him, dude. We've never seen Volkanovski get knocked out like that. That was a devastating right hand. If that landed on anybody from 45 to 55 to 170, they are getting knocked out. That's the kind of power and technique that Ilia has, man. That's just the reality. This isn't some guy that's just out here throwing. Man, he's hoping and firing. No. Not at all. This was a strategic breakdown. The way that he attacked Volkanovski, he knows Volk's movement is probably his best asset. Sticking and moving, being real smart, popping from the outside, pulling you into his shots. Just like we saw Volkanovski do for 50 minutes against Diego Lopez. Whooped Diego Lopez's ass for a total of 50 minutes. 2 25-minute fights. And Alexander Volkanovski looked really good in both of those fights. He looked really good in the first round against Ilia until Ilia started to beat up that lead leg, compromise his movement, back him up against the fence, and then take him out with the boxing. And notice how Ilia could cut off the octagon, how he could trap Volkanovski up against the fence. That's why I picked Volk to beat Diego Lopez, especially the second time. I picked Diego the first time, to be fair, but we got to learn that Diego's footwork isn't that good. And that was the difference, and that's why I picked Volk in the rematch, because I'm like, Diego's footwork, he can't cut him off. He has the power to hurt Volkanovski and knock him out, but the difference was the footwork and the methodical approach, and that's what Ilia put on display. So to act like, oh, well, this is just Volkanovski being older, and he was coming off of a KO loss. If you run Ilia versus Volkanovski 10 out of 10 times, Volk gets knocked out all 10 times by Ilia Topuria, in my opinion. Volk does not beat Ilia. Ilia Topuria is a kryptonite-like matchup for Volkanovski. He's a problem for him because of the power and because of the elite boxing. So the reality is, people saying, this was some lucky punch. Nothing about this was lucky whatsoever. Oh, he made too quick of a turnaround. Yeah, I do think he made too quick of a turnaround. But the reality is, Volk could have came back, taken a year off, fought a couple fights, won a couple fights in a row, build up his confidence, go in there, he would get knocked out by Ilia Topuria. It's just how good Ilia is, man. It's just how good the dude is. Right, and then the Max Holloway win. Oh, well, Max Holloway went up at, UFC 300 to 155, and then he cut back down, to 145. And do I love when guys move up a weight class and then come back down? No, I don't. But the reality is, that was Max's weight class. And Max Holloway, if you go back and watch the fight, he looked really, really good until he got knocked out. He was fighting a really good fight. He looked fast. It was one of the fastest versions I think we've seen of Holloway. He was sticking and moving, fighting a really good game plan, popping the jab, boxing really, really well, mixing in some kicks. He was moving really, really well. He was tagging up Ilia Topuria, man. Like, Holloway was fighting a really, really good fight. And then Ilia Topuria attacks the lead leg, starts to affect the movement a little bit, marches him down, and starts to make his reads and lets his hands go. And we all know when Ilia Topuria can get to you with the boxing, we know how that story goes. He's got the best boxing in the sport. I've been saying it since the guy came into the UFC. And it's crazy because he was basically just a straight grappler. That was his bread and butter all the way up pretty much until he got to the UFC, and then he became an elite boxer. And Max Holloway, he's old. He's not the same fighter. Holloway is still outstanding, dude. He literally schooled Justin Gaethje at UFC 300. Put on a masterclass. Was Mr. Speedy Gonzalez sticking and moving, frustrating Gaethje to where everyone's like, Gaethje's going to Tony Ferguson Holloway. And I sat up here and said, Max Holloway is not only going to beat Justin Gaethje, but he's going to knock him out. Now, granted, got a little bit lucky with the prediction there because if they don't do the point to the ground in the final seconds, then Holloway probably does not KO him. But Max Holloway still easily won the fight. There was a huge skill difference and a speed difference. And then he drops back down to fight Ilia where he's looking really good, and then he gets knocked out. We've never seen Max Holloway get knocked out. We've never seen him hurt nearly that bad against Ilia Topuria. Ilia put it on him, man. It was a great win. And then Holloway comes back and beats up on Dustin Poirier. Like to where Poirier not that long before had beat up on Benoit Saint-Denis. So it's just amazing how people want to say, these fighters don't have it anymore, man. They do. It's just Ilia is that good. And then Justin Gaethje just wrecked Paddy Pimblett, right? And we all were like, man, if Paddy's going to win a fight, it should be against Gaethje. Gaethje's older, right? And then even before Gaethje beat up on Paddy Pimblett where he dominated him, he beat Rafael Fiziev. He beat Fiziev twice. But no, these guys are all just washed. They're old and they don't have it anymore. So Ilia's just getting these favorable matchups. They're all worn out. No, they're not, man. They're not. Give me a break. Volkanovski still looks fantastic. Out there schooling Diego Lopez, right? Beating everybody else in the division outside of Ilia. That was amazing in the trilogy against Max Holloway, right? And then coming out here and starching Charles Oliveira, like we've never seen anybody do that to Charles. Nobody. Put him in the crucifix, had success in the grappling against Charles, and Charles is the most prolific finisher of all time. He's got the submission record, I believe, right? Like, Charles is unbelievably dangerous. He's got nasty striking on the feet. Now, we know that, especially his boxing defense is a huge hole in his game, which is why I picked Ilia to knock Charles out in the first round. I knew how this fight was going to go because he was going to mosey forward into range. That's Charles' style. But how many guys have we seen rock Charles Oliveira, not follow him to the ground, not be able to put him out like that? Guys, some of the best strikers that we've seen at lightweight. Poirier, Gaethje. Islam was able to drop him and then sub him. Right, but to put him out like this, we've never seen this, man. We have never seen anybody do that to Charles Oliveira. Literally like brutal. Absolutely brutal. So, and then Charles Oliveira goes out there and destroys Mateusz Gamrot with ease. Right, that was after he got knocked out by Ilia. Came back a couple months later in Brazil, and we're like, man, he's coming back too quick. This is probably a disaster. What's he doing? What's he doing? And it was supposed to be Rafael Fiziev. Then Fiziev gets hurt or whatever happened. He had to pull out of the fight. In steps Gamrot, so he takes Gamrot on a shorter notice. And it's like, man, you know, Gamrot's one of those matchups to where he's a miserable guy to deal with. His cardio's great. His wrestling's really good. Not the most dangerous guy, but he's in the prime of his career. A lot of guys are not super excited to fight Gamrot because of the style matchup. And Charles absolutely dominated him. Outstruck him. Out-grappled him and then submitted him. Destroyed Mateusz Gamrot. We have not seen anybody do that to Gamrot. But all of a sudden now Charles is so worn out. He's so washed up. He doesn't have it anymore. I just find it interesting how Gaethje's all washed up, doesn't have it anymore. But he can beat Fiziev twice. Can beat Paddy Pimblett. Charles Oliveira is so washed up. But yeah, he can go out there and beat Gamrot. Can dominate Michael Chandler, which I get it. Michael Chandler, right? Maybe not the best argument there. Right? And then Max Holloway, he's taken so much damage. We literally saw Gaethje hit Max Holloway at 55, and it really did nothing to him. We saw Poirier land some shots on Holloway, and it doesn't really do anything to him. And then he gets rocked by Ilia Topuria, and it has a massive effect. And then when Ilia is able to land the perfect shots, he puts him down. We've never seen Max anywhere close to that kind of trouble, man. And then, Max will get him at 55. I mean, I'd love to see a rematch, especially at 155, but to act like these are all, it's just one thing after another. It's excuse after another as to why Ilia wins these fights. And the reality is, all of these guys, are they in the heart of their prime anymore? Maybe not, but they are all still world-class fighters. They're all still top of the food chain in these divisions, man. They're still out here winning fights against other amazing fighters. Amazing fighters. And if you want to make that argument of, well, they're not in the heart of their primes anymore, Ilia Topuria knocks out a prime Volkanovski. He does. He absolutely does, man. It's literally the way that this guy breaks people down. If you listen to his interviews, the way that he prepares, he's literally just like a maestro in there. He has a boxing approach. He's very methodical, very patient, makes his reads, takes his time. And then once he makes his reads, man, it's a wrap. And that's what you see in these fights. The way that he got after Volk, attacked the leg, marched him down, pinned him up against the fence with the boxing. Right? And that's why a lot of people are like, well, Diego's going to beat Volkanovski because Diego has the power, but he doesn't have the footwork. And obviously he doesn't have the technique. He doesn't have the fight IQ. He doesn't have the ability to be able to cut the cage off. That's what makes Ilia special. All of these things together, man, and goes out there and starches Volkanovski. And then Holloway, who's been looking fantastic, especially at 155. And in this fight against Ilia, he looked great. I thought it was one of the better versions we've seen of Holloway. He looked fast. He looked speedy. He was tagging Topuria. Right, and Max Holloway has one of, if not the best chin of all time. And the only person to ever knock him out is Ilia Topuria. And it's probably going to stay that way. Right, and then to go out there and do that to Charles Oliveira. We've seen Charles hurt. We've seen him drop multiple times. By Islam, by Poirier, by Gaethje. Like, we've seen that. But to see him walk in and get timed with a missile of a right hand down the pipe by Ilia and literally just terrifying KO. And people still want to talk about how it's this, it's that. But yet these guys are beating everybody else, but they just can't beat Ilia Topuria. Don't you recognize a pattern here? And then when you look at this resume, we see fighters that get catapulted into these title shots, and then people love to just glaze them and build them up, and they don't want to pick apart their resumes. Ilia Topuria has a really good resume, man. The time he beat Bryce Mitchell was a very good win. The time he beat Josh Emmett, it was a good win. And then given the landscape of the featherweight division, he was next up for the title. And it was a huge fight. It was a huge fight. And at the end of the day, you can blame circumstances. You can blame weight cuts. You can blame they're a little bit older. They're not exactly the guy they once were. Ilia beats all of these guys, whether they're in their prime, they're slightly out of, whatever you want to say. He is a better fighter than all the guys. That is the reality. He's a better fighter than these guys, and that's why he beat them. And people continue to make all these excuses as to why Ilia Topuria is beating people, and they want to take away these wins, and I don't get it. They want to discredit these wins. Makes no sense to me, man. Makes absolutely no sense, and that's why I say appreciate the dude while he's here, because he's a very special talent, and I feel this way about all the fighters, really. I mean, you look at Islam Makhachev, what he's able to do. I think he's the GOAT of the sport. Islam Makhachev, what he's been able to do, his resume is incredible, right? And I've sat up here and defended Islam. People were like, oh, well, he beat Volkanovski twice. He beat a featherweight twice. I don't look at it that way, because Alexander Volkanovski is more skilled than most of the lightweights that we've seen. Like, ever. He's one of the best fighters ever. So to beat him, in a sense, means more than beating almost any other lightweight there is at the time. Even now. You know what I mean? And then Ilia Topuria, it's kind of the same thing. Taking out the guys he did at featherweight, then coming up to 55, taking out a guy like Charles. Like, you see what I'm saying, man? Hamzat Chimaev, Islam Makhachev, Ilia Topuria. These guys are incredible fighters. They're elite. And they're out here beating the best fighters in the world, and people just want to discredit, take away from the wins, make all these excuses. The bottom line is, plain and simple, as I tweeted here, the Ilia Topuria disrespect is just ridiculous. Volk whooped Diego's ass for 50 minutes. And by the way, Ilia Topuria would knock out Diego Lopez. He would crack that granite chin of Diego Lopez. Max starched Gaethje and schooled Dustin. Charles just destroyed Gamrot. These guys are still top of the food chain. Ilia is just that good. Accepted. It is as simple as that. Ilia Topuria, I think he is the second best fighter in the world, right behind Islam Makhachev. He, by the end of the day, by the time it's all said and done, is going to be an all-time great. I don't understand why people hate on this guy, dude. Literally, all he does is go out here and knock people out. Knock people out or put on very exciting performances. So, I don't get it whatsoever, man. But bottom line, the Ilia Topuria disrespect has gone too far. And I'm not saying that this is everybody, but there is a large portion of the fan base that wants to sit out there and critique every little win that he has. And, oh no, well, this resume and that resume. I don't get it, man. It's ludicrous. It's annoying. The bottom line is, accept it. He's one of the best fighters in the game. I think he's already one of the best fighters of all time, and I think he has the greatest 3-fight win streak of all time. KOing Volk, KOing Holloway, KOing Charles Oliveira. I'm excited to see what's next for Ilia Topuria. Sounds like it's going to be Gaethje. That is a very bad night at the office for Justin Gaethje, man. I don't see how he beats Ilia Topuria. So like we said before, this dude is here to take out all the legends that we love, man. Love watching Ilia Topuria fight. The bottom line is, the dude is just that good. Accept it.